This is the video for Class 1, Lab 2, and in this lab we're going to create our first map, and we're going to be using Google My Maps to do that. We're also going to be using a data set for cities that are above 100,000 in population in the United States, and there's 297 cities in our data set. And we're going to be mapping the population change from 2010 to 2014. So we're going to be importing our data. We're going to do what's called a geocode. Once the geocode is done, then we'll be able to thematically map based on our rank. And we'll be able to see a difference in terms of spatial patterns for cities as they've gained population and lost population also. So to get started, I've downloaded the data for the lab, and you'll have a reference to that data location. And I'm just going to right-click and extract it. And as I extract it, I'm just going to get rid of that original zipped folder, delete that. And as I see inside the folder here, I have a CSV file. I'm just going to put that on the desktop. And I'm going to go ahead and navigate to My Maps, Google My Maps. So if you just Google My Maps, you'll get into that utility. So we click on My Maps, and I'm currently logged in, so you want to make sure that you're logged into a Gmail account or into Google Drive, and that'll allow you to just quickly get into My Maps here. I'm just going to create a new map. And when I do that, I'll be presented with the default base map that Google provides, which is a little bit boring, but it should work for our purposes pretty well. If you want to change that, you're welcome to do so. You can go ahead and just click on base map at the bottom, and you can see the different options that you have. I think actually I'm going to use the terrain version here. And as I do that, I have a title for the map, untitled map. I also have, there's a subtext you can put into your map also. But what's really important is you can start putting in layers of data into this map. So we have the base map, but then everything that we're going to stick on top is going to be our features data. So points, lines, and polygons are what Google My Maps will accept as a default. In this case, we have a table. And in the table, we don't have any latitude, longitude. All we have is a city name and a state. So New York, New York, San Diego, California, Los Angeles, California. And we need to let Google Maps do what's called geocoding the addresses. So what it will do is it will take the name, the combination of the state and the city, and it will attach actual latitude, longitude for that location, for that pairing of names, and place the feature onto a map. That's what we call a geocode. It's basically producing latitude and longitude from known address data. The other option is to do what's called a reverse geocode, which is where we give it latitude and longitude, and it gives us back an actual address, but we're not going to do that in this case. So the first thing I want to do is let's just go ahead and import our data. So I'm going to say select the file from your computer. Actually, before we do that, let's just take a look at it in text. So I'm going to open it, and I'll just open it in Notepad. And we can see it's a little bit chaotic here, but we can see on the first one we have a rank and then city and state. So here our geographic component is Woodbridge, New Jersey. And Google Maps has Woodbridge, New Jersey in its database, so it's going to recognize where that location is, and it's going to assign through the geocoding process a latitude and longitude that it can then map. So that's kind of what's going on. And then everything else here is my census change. I have some ranks and land area. Those are just all values that are separated by commas. And as we can see, Google Maps is going to accept a CSV. And many different online mapping utilities will accept CSV. Cardo does CSV really well. So let's go ahead and import this. So we'll select our file, and it uploads. And as it does so, it's going to ask us, how do you want me to place or make the actual points on the map? And so here's where we need to select this correctly. So we have city and state. We're going to click city and state and say continue. And if it doesn't kick in, try it a second time. So city and state a second time. And there we go. It should kick in here. Should take maybe 20 seconds or so to actually load in and do that geocode. I'll just go ahead and, oh, actually it's going right now, so I'll just go ahead and continue on here. So it looks like I did it pretty well. Yeah, I didn't get any unexpected points. So I even have a point over here in Hawaii. And right now this is perfectly fine. So we have the points mapped. It's done the geocode for us. But the big issue is that we can't really make a lot of sense out of the data. So one column that we do have is we have a ranking from 0 to 2 that tells us if the city has lost population, if it's gained it moderately, or if it's gained it significantly. So 2s are significant, 1 is a moderate gain, and 0 is a loss of population. So if I go over here to uniform style, I'm going to change it to actually styling by the data column that represents that particular change. So in this case, I have change rank. And that's just a column, again, that's been ranked based on the percentage of change. So there we go. And I'm going to change the colors so they make some sense. So for 0s, those are cities that have really lost population. We can see the pattern. That's in what we would call the Rust Belt, and also down in the south there's a real cluster of cities that have lost population. So let's actually keep those red. So for the gains, the moderate gains at 1, they're spread across the United States, and we can see there's a cluster in California. There's a lot down in Florida and also in Texas. Let's go ahead and make that a middling orange. And then for those that have really gained a lot, let's go ahead and make them a yellow. You could choose another scheme. I'm going to make this a light yellow. Okay, so that gives us at least we can really see the ones that have lost, and we can also see decently the 2s here. So let's just kind of zoom into our map a little bit. And so we can see in California we have all gains. That's to be expected. In the Fort Worth area, interestingly enough, we can see that we have all around this area, this metro region, we have city centers that are greater than 100,000 that are gaining population. So that's a growing city, obviously. And if we come out to Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana area, we can see that we have a pocket of cities that are losing population. And of course, we all have heard about the Rust Belt, and we can see what's happening in the Rust Belt up in this section here. And if we go to the East Coast here in the Northeast, what's interesting is that Connecticut has 2 cities that are losing population. They're kind of falling out of the larger trend, where the Northeast is moderately gaining right along the coast. It's important to note that as you get into, say, the interior of New York State, particularly in what we would call upstate New York, we're losing a lot of population, but we don't see any large cities in this particular data set that are losing those populations. We only have these coastal cities here. So by thematically mapping our data just based on one column, we gain a lot more insight into the data set. And we've let Google Maps do the geocode for us, so we actually have, or at least Google Maps has a latitude and longitude point now that it can map to that city. One thing to note relative to our first lab is if we zoom in and look at, say, Billings here, where that point is dropped down is what Google Maps considers to be the center of Billings. You might think of the center of Billings as being slightly different, but you're really kind of giving up control of that accuracy when you do a geocode based on address names or based on city or state to whatever geocode service you're actually using online. And there's many geocode services online. Google Maps, the API that it uses to do this is very popular and tends to be highly accurate, especially for addresses, just because they have so much data that they compare points to. So hopefully this gives us a sense of what to do with data that we want to map, where we only have an address or we only have, say, the city and the state. And we want to actually map that onto a map. And then we've just simply done a little bit of thematic mapping here, nothing particularly sophisticated. When we jump into doing GIS mapping and using software designed specifically to do map design, we're going to have much more control over our features, and that's something to look forward to in our second week.